Now, I know we've been talking a lot about The Last of Us Part 2 on this channel recently, but I think it's for good reason. We are very close to finally getting some official information, and I've been doing my best to keep you guys updated with every piece of information or relevant information that we learn about as we get closer to this state of play that's going to be happening this Tuesday, as well as this private media briefing that Sony and Naughty Dog are holding behind closed doors. There's been a lot of information circulating, a lot of leaks, a lot of rumors, and some official stuff in between as well. But the last video I made talked about a seemingly big rumor, or leak I should say, that came out of nowhere, giving us the release date of February 28th, 2020, and it also talked about a retailer leaking the different editions of the game. And as many of you pointed out to me, it actually was confirmed to be fake and not the real thing. The reason why people were not so quick to realize it was fake was because it seemed as though that the leak came that day, or within that 24-hour period. But people who looked into it, they realized that this is actually something that this Swiss retailer where it's been leaked from, it's actually been up for months. It's been up for over 3 months now. So it's been confirmed to essentially just be a placeholder. Now, while that may seem disappointing to some people because the leak did seem promising in some ways, I have some other information contained within this video that I just came across that actually I think throws a wrench in everything we may have been thinking up until this point, to an extent, when it comes to a release date. Now, first of all, it's important that I make this video to let all of you know that that leak apparently was fake. Now, it doesn't mean there couldn't be some type of truth to it when it comes to the different editions and how much they're going to cost, but I wouldn't put that much stock into it. Now, this other leak we're going to be talking about happened at around the same time, but this one actually seems a little bit, if not a lot more promising in many ways. It does seem like this actually could be likely, and there's one, well, I don't want to say one big reason, but there is something that does maybe actually back this up. For those of you who've been following the channel for a little while, you may know that a couple of months ago, I think it was actually 2, maybe even 3 months ago, we talked about a leak that popped up on 4chan, which is obviously not a good place to really, believe what is said there. But we went over it anyway to kind of talk about how plausible it is and how likely it seems. And one of the things that was contained within that leak, well, not only did it mention things like a state of play in early October, which here we are very close to early October and we are getting a state of play, it talked about a launch trailer for Death Stranding being shown at this state of play. And interestingly enough, apparently Hideo Kojima is teasing an upcoming launch trailer, so there's that. On top of that, it said that we are going to get an update on The Last of Us Part 2, and we are going to get a release date. And the leak even said, the person who posted it even said that the leak or the release date that we are going to get is May 22nd, 2020. Now, what's very interesting about this is I came across, while just scouring the internet for any more Last of Us 2 news that I could find, because I don't use NeoGAF. In fact, I've never used it, but I know it's a thing. But I came across this post on NeoGAF that reveals, apparently, a Amazon UK listing that was up for a very short period of time that lists a release date for The Last of Us Part 2 as May 23rd, 2020. Now, some people have pointed out that this is a Saturday, and it's very rare, if ever, new big AAA games release on a Saturday. And it made me think, wait, wasn't there a leak before that actually kind of corroborates this a little bit and backs this up, that I could have swore it was like late May. It was May 20-something, and it was May 22nd, 2020, which apparently would be a Friday, which it's actually not that uncommon for some AAA video games to release on a Friday. So this kind of throws a whole wrench in the idea of Sony releasing The Last of Us Part 2 in February. What I'm starting to think is that this game, The Last of Us Part 2, might actually be set for a May 22nd, 2020 release. And the reason why February keeps popping up and is, being confirmed by people within the industry saying like this is what they've heard, as if like they don't know it as concrete like this is for sure, but this is what they're hearing. They're hearing the rumor, the rumored month being February being thrown around. Maybe the reason they're doing that is because now we have another leak, and I know that this is getting, very confusing to an extent and really kind of just convoluted here, but for people who've been following it, we've also gotten a leak not that long ago saying that the PlayStation 5 is set to be fully revealed in February of 2020, and that Sony is planning to utilize The Last of Us Part 2 to really show what the PlayStation 5 is capable of, and they're going to use The Last of Us 2 as their big game to showcase. Now, this is where I kind of got a little bit conflicted internally, thinking, well, would it really make sense for Sony to show the PlayStation 5 off at the same time they're releasing their biggest AAA game? Probably not, because it's just kind of a weird thing, right? Like, it just doesn't make that much sense. But if the game's going to be coming out a couple months later, and they know people are still going to be hyped for it, and people are also going to be hyped for the PlayStation 5, this could also be their way of confirming that the game will be playable on the PlayStation 5, and if you choose to buy it at the end of the year, maybe this means you'll be entitled to some major updates or some major improvements if you play this game on the PlayStation 5. I don't know, this is all just kind of starting to come together where we're going to know. This is definitely going to be my last video unless something major happens tomorrow, which I'm not anticipating it. It's going to be my last video speculating upon this because we're going to know on Tuesday. And I didn't have to make this video, but I felt as though it was worth making it here to just let you guys know that if you were anticipating a February 28th release date, it's been confirmed that that's not a real date. That's a placeholder. And as many of you actually pointed out to me as well, which I totally just completely missed this when I was recording that video, which blows my mind. I don't know how I missed this. A lot of you pointed out that release date of February 28th, 2020, there's no way that could be real because that's 3 days before another major PS4 exclusive is releasing, that being the Final Fantasy VII Remake, which we know that has a ton of hype around it. Now, I do not think Final Fantasy VII Remake is on the same level in terms of hype as a game like The Last of Us Part 2, but it's up there. It's up there for sure in the top, easily the top 5, and for a lot of people the top 3. So with that in mind, it really wouldn't make sense for Sony to choose that as a release date. They're basically just competing with themselves at that point. Even though I believe that Final Fantasy VII Remake is a second-party deal that they have in place with Square Enix, of course, for the exclusivity on PlayStation 4. Still, it's a PS4 exclusive. It just doesn't make sense. At least give it some breathing room. Give these games their breathing room, because I can tell you, that would be a problem for a lot of people in terms of money and in terms of time. So now we're looking at a potential May release date. And the thing is, I've seen a lot of you tell me that you believe that May, or around that time, sounds like a more ideal time than February, because February is, there's nothing about it that makes you think, oh, there's no way, right? It just is a bad time to release it. But we do have to think about, why February has been rumored so much. And maybe there's a connection here. And that connection all lies within the fact that the PlayStation 5 is going to be something that Sony wants to talk about in 2020, right? Especially, they're going to want to take time to have a big reveal for that. But they don't want to get in their own way when it comes to The Last of Us 2. So maybe they combine the two. Think about it. Now, the big question that I'm left with, if any of this ends up being true, right, because we don't know what we're going to see on Tuesday. For all I know, everything I'm saying is completely off, and we're going to find out that the game comes out early February, and we're going to get a massive gameplay reveal or something like that. But knowing that they're showing a behind closed doors thing here, with The Last of Us Part 2 on Tuesday as well. It's going to be a long media briefing. Maybe there's a chance, and I think this may be a little bit disappointing for some people, but maybe there's a chance that the media is going to get hands-on time with, The Last of Us Part 2, a huge presentation, and they're going to relay this massive, news blowout of information to us, but we're not really going to get any footage. It's just going to be talked about, and then, we're going to talk about it as well. Maybe they're going to save what they show during that 3-hour presentation. Not all of it, of course, but most of it, the significant parts. Maybe they're going to save that for February of next year for when they fully reveal the PlayStation 5. And they're going to have that, they're basically going to show all of that to the public. Now, the only thing that really kind of makes me lean away from that is the time gap. Because if you think about it, they're going to be showing this let's just say for all intents and purposes in the beginning of October, because when we look back on it, that's how we're going to see it. We're so close to October. So let's just say at the beginning of October, right, to the media. And then we're going to have to go through October, November, December, January. So that's a lot of months of not hearing anything more about The Last of Us Part 2. But if you think about it, there's two big things that they have to carry them up until February where people are not going to really be that upset. First of all, they have Death Stranding releasing. There's going to be a lot of emphasis, placed around that being the big holiday 2019 title. They can't put too much emphasis on The Last of Us Part 2 for the rest of 2019 because they still do have another AAA exclusive they have to sell people on and get out there and make sure all the attention is on that. They don't need The Last of Us Part 2 stealing any attention from Death Stranding. They are very different games, but still, they don't want to get in their own way. That and the fact that, if they just give us a new trailer and a release date this Tuesday, it's far enough in advance and ahead of of Death Stranding's release date that I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's not going to get in the way of anything. The hype for Death Stranding, that train's still going to be going just as strong, but people are just going to be incredibly excited to finally have a release date. And even if it does end up being May, some people may be a little bit disappointed because it seems so far away, but it's, we're ending this year and we're going to be in 2020 before we know it, and we also have Death Stranding to enjoy. So, again, I know that this is just a lot of speculation, but it'll probably be the last video I do this type of speculation on. So I wanted to kind of just end it here by, showing you guys that apparently there was a Amazon UK listing that had it up temporarily. Some people are going to say that, May 23rd, 2020 just seems like a placeholder date, but that's a really specific date. And we also have to keep in mind that the chances of, the only thing that's weird to me about it is, like, why would it be the 23rd and not the 22nd? So there's just a lot of different moving parts here, a lot of different pieces of information, and I'm just trying to connect the dots. And at this point, I kind of feel like, it has become a little bit too convoluted. But the good news is the light is finally here. We've reached the light at the end of the tunnel. This Tuesday, we are going to get some big information, and I'm excited. So, yeah, there you go, guys. That's going to do it for the video. It turned out a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to leave your thoughts down below. What do you think about this information? Are you still believing it's going to be a February release, or do you think that maybe it's more likely we'll have the big, public info blowout in February alongside the PS5, and the game will come out in May? Or are you still thinking it's just going to release in February? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it or found it informative. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.